Real quick before we jump into the video, guys, for the rest of this year I'm going to be on a fundraising campaign to raise a minimum of £1,000 for the Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. For more information on the charity and what it does, and for the donation links, please look in the description below. And thank you all for your continued support. Enjoy the show. What's going on, guys? Rabonbi Teacher in the house, and I'm back with another video today, talking about some Pokemon Unite shenanigans, and with the roster slowly expanding with the upcoming release of Blastoise imminently, I wanted to talk about what Pokemon I'd like to see in the game, because of course the roster is still pretty small, and for a MOBA game like this to survive, the roster will need to expand a little bit, which will be able to help draft phase potentially be a thing in Pokemon Unite. Maybe, maybe not, but it's going to be pretty fun. So I've compiled a list of 5 Pokemon that I would like to see, one in each role, a whole of support, all-rounder, speedster, attacker, and defender. I've tried to come up with one for each. It was pretty hard to come up with one of them, but I think there's one that I think is going to be pretty interesting, and I would love to see this happen in the game. So let's start with the obvious one, shall we? Given the fact it's my mascot, let's talk about Rabonbi, shall we? So Rabonbi being a supporter makes a lot of sense. We don't really have a particular healer support aside from Eldegoss, so having the ability to maybe potentially have an additional healing support, even if it is still using Pollen Puff that Eldegoss uses. Obviously Rabonbi is well known for Pollen Puff, as it is Rabonbi's original signature move until Eldegoss got it. So pretty solid set for it. Could be something like Sticky Web, which could be like an AoE slowing effect, which would be kind of interesting. Obviously we have Electro Web in the game, which is a direct immobilizer, but Sticky Web being a potential AoE slow could be really interesting. We don't see a lot of like slowing enemies necessarily in the game. And then Draining Kiss, of course, giving Rabonbi some extra life would be nice. Healing is always very impactful. Quiver Dance could be a very, very fun option, but I wouldn't actually be against replacing this with Dazzling Gleam, and then using Quiver Dance as a Unite move. That could be really fun. I think there's a lot of potential good options for a supportive style Rabonbi set. Quiver Dance being a Unite move could be pretty exciting, actually, just giving your entire teammates attack, damage, and speed. That could be pretty really fun. Could be a very, very fun ability. Might be slightly overpowered, but definitely kind of fun. Struggle Bug would be an interesting move as well, given the fact that it could essentially debuff the offensive stats of your opponent. That could be pretty fun. But I do like Pollen Puff a little bit more, for obvious reasons. It can heal allies as well as deal damage. So it's a pretty interesting option. I think as a utility supporter, we don't really have much good healers. So this could be a fun option as a way to bring a healer support into the game. Obviously, a lot of people tend to talk about Blissey a lot more. I'm not a huge fan of that one myself. Alright, so next, let's talk about Allrounder, because right now in the game, we don't really have a specific, like, ranged type Allrounder. So I was looking around to see what kind of Pokemon I would like to see as an Allrounder, and I actually came up with a pretty fun set for Dragonite. Obviously, Dragonite being a 3-stage evolution from Dratini could mean that this could be a late-game scaler, or it could evolve in the same places as like Charizard does. 5 and 9 would be pretty good for it. I don't think 6 and 10 is going to be all that great. I think 5 and 9 would be just about right for this. So Dratini in the early stage having Thunder Wave and something like Dragon Rage could be interesting. Dragon Rage, of course, being single target, but dealing like a set guaranteed amount of damage. That could be a pretty fun concept idea. Thunder Wave, of course, an AoE slowing effect. Kind of similar in a way to Thunderbolt, but slightly weaker. It doesn't stun, it slows. Dragon Breath could be fun, like an AoE coning stunning effect. And then Hurricane, of course, is a move that already exists in the game, as Cramorant has it. But I could see a Unite move for this being really, really interesting. So I was having a look around for other MOBAs just for inspiration for a potential Unite move style. And I think Draco Meteor could be really exciting for it. Draco Meteor being like a point-and-click zonal, like landing a bunch of Draco Meteors in a specific spot. Kind of similar to, if anyone's ever played League of Legends is watching this, to Gangplank's ultimate. That would be a really, really fun ability to have. It could definitely cause a lot of pressure On Zapdos, for example, just drop the Draco Meteor over Zapdos. It could be a way to fight for the objective. That could be a pretty fun example. But this definitely could be really interesting to play from further back, rather than actually have to kind of be all in, which is essentially what all the Allrounders currently in the game are like. Obviously, Charizard could fulfill technically a ranged Allrounder if it ran like Flamethrower and Fire Blast, but it does significantly less damage than Fire Punch and Flare Blitz right now, so it definitely really does feel more ranged style. So or melee style rather. So a ranged style for Dragonite could be really interesting. Next up, let's have a chat about Speedsters. Now, Speedsters in the game right now, we only really have Gengar that's an out-and-out special Speedster. Obviously, Zeraora kind of does mixed damage, depending on what moves you build. And then Absol and Talonflame are pure physical damage dealers. So, I was thinking about what could we do for a special, and I thought, why not introduce Gengar's counterpart, Alakazam. So, Alakazam as a special speedster is kind of interesting. It was pretty hard to come up with like a late game moveset for it that wasn't Gardevoir's moveset, but nonetheless, Teleport's already in the game because Ralts has it, so it makes pretty good sense to just run that on this as well. Psybeam, of course, the differentiator from Confusion is actually Alakazam does get Psybeam at level 5, so it does actually mean that this is somewhat viable as an option. Maybe a little bit more powerful move than Confusion just to make it actually designed to clear the jungle. Psychic Terrain and Expanding Force is a really, really fun combination. So my thought behind this is Psychic Terrain creates like this zone where Alakazam moves faster, so that could be your way to get into the fight. And then Expanding Force being some kind of like rectangular zone effect, much like it is in the game where it's like a rectangular amount of Expanding Force, but does more damage to any enemies caught in the Psychic Terrain. I think that could be a really, really fun late game hyper policy for the Speedster, to make sure that the Speedsters don't really fall off later on into the game. I think this could be really, really fun. It could be really good to play around objectives, especially around Zapdos. It could be a really good team fight changer. This could be a really, really fun style set. Not sure if this would really work in the game for a Speedster. This could also just be a ranged attacker style set, but this could be kind of fun, especially if you can create a zone of mobility, which would be really, really fun to use. So, the next concept I had in mind was one I had a really hard time picking a Pokemon for, because also in the game right now, we don't really have like an out-and-out melee attacker. There's a lot of ranged attackers in the game, but there's not really a melee attacker, because most melee-style Pokemon are Allrounders, like Lucario, Machamp, Garchomp, you know, even Charizard in that sense. So there's a lot of melee Allrounders, but there's not really an out-and-out melee attacker. So I wanted to look for Pokemon that could fit that bill. Obviously, the annoying thing is Machamp is already taken, because that was going to be my immediate first thought. But I did find an out oddball one, which is Sizzle. Sizzle could be really exciting. The idea being with the melee attackers, you have an ability to jump in and then just dish out as much damage as humanly possible. I found a hard time getting an early game moveset for this, but Quick Attack could easily be used as a dash. Makes pretty much sense. It does learn Quick Attack very early on. A Fury Cutter as an early game bug type move could be pretty interesting as like a single target low cooldown move, but does more damage to the Pokemon if you hit the same target multiple times. That was kind of an interesting concept I had. Obviously, if this was on Scyther, this would be a lot weaker, but this could be really, really interesting. And then U-Turn could be an enhanced dash, essentially. It could easily be a jump in style thing, maybe a 2-cast move. Kind of similar to Zeraora's Volt Switch, where you jump on in, maybe do damage with your Bullet Punch, which does huge amount of damage to single target, and stuff like that. I could see a world where this would be interesting. And then obviously dash back out again with your U-turn. This gives you some escapability. I debated on running Feint on this thing because obviously Cinderace has Feint and Sizzle does also get it, but it doesn't really make too much sense to me. But this could be a pretty fun idea for a set. Obviously with a lot of instances where crowd control is pretty massive in the game right now. There's a lot of Pokemon with really, really good crowd control. This may not work. This may not necessarily work, but it's a fun idea to try out nonetheless. And then the last, but by no means least, this is the one I think I have the most fun trying to make, and that's a Defender. So right now in the game, we have Defenders that kind of block the way to objectives with Snorlax with a lot of heavy engage. We have ways of just moving people around with Crustle's Egg Scissor. and stuff like that. But aside from that, there's not that much intuitive defenders in my opinion. Like, yes, Slowbro's kind of nice, it's single target lockup, the Surf is kind of nice, but I wanted to make a defender that has a Unite move that kind of locks down one of your towers and stops the enemy from taking it, which might be a little bit overpowered, but if it's a Unite move that's on a long cooldown, I don't think it's actually that bad. And I kind of was trying to think of a concept for this, and I came up with a set for Tangrowth. Tangrowth could be pretty fascinating, I think. Obviously, starting out as a Tangler would be an interesting thing, with Poison Powder being like a zonal poison that does minor dart damage. Vine Whip could be a snare type effect. This could obviously lock things in place for your carries to start dishing out a load of damage. And then as it evolves into Tangrowth, things like Sleep Powder and AoE Sleep Effect could be like a slow activating one. Kind of a little bit like Wigglytuff's Sing, but more of a skill shot. That could be fun. And then obviously Giga Drain giving you a bit more survivability. But the Unite move being Frenzy Plant is what shuts down the tower. And the thought behind this is that right now, with Zapdos being as overpowered as it is, being able to shut down an enemy team from taking a tower for a few seconds could be really, really interesting. Obviously, being a fact it's melee range, it probably should be activated on the tower nearest to Tangrowth. That could make it pretty interesting, because you could then jump to a tower that maybe 3 of the enemy team with Zapdos are going to, and then just shut down that tower for a few seconds, and that could allow your team to go and fight the enemy team, potentially kill them, and actually protect some of your towers, and that might make Zapdos a little bit weaker. Obviously, nerfing Zapdos is probably a necessity at some point in the game. But that's kind of the concept I thought for Tangrowth. It would be kind of interesting. Its move pool is kind of a little bit awkward to make a set for, but I think this is a pretty good attempt at it. Maybe Giga Drain should probably be replaced with something else to fit the more melee style playstyle. But I couldn't really think of something I'd liked too much for like a melee move, short of things like Knock Off or Earthquake, which are coverage moves that it doesn't normally super optimally use. But I thought this was a pretty fun idea. So these are kind of the 5 Pokemon I would like to see in the game, or at least the 5 concepts. Let me know what you think down below. Of course, I'd love to hear from you, and let me know what Pokemon you'd like to see in the game, and maybe a moveset for it too. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay awesome, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Hope you all enjoyed it. And if you liked the video, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn the notification bell on, so that you never miss an upload. We upload every single day on this channel. Make sure you're following me on all of my social medias on the screen right now. And a huge shout out to the shiny Rabombis of this month: Araya Jade, The Crazed Artist, Mr. Burns 1988, and Average Gaming 017. Thank you all for your continued support.